We are on our second session of the Top of the Pyramid module, and you're going to be joined by Judy on the next slide.
Positive behavior supports works for all ages and has a big emphasis on including families in its holistic approach. After all, families were the child's first teacher. There are clear and distinct steps to this process, and we will look at each one in depth. The process of positive behavior supports and developing a plan. When establishing a collaborative team and identifying goals, it's important to know, who do you want on your team? Who are potential team members? Some potential team members are the parents and family. They are the first teacher of that child. Teachers, they spend a significant amount of time with that child each day. Assistant teachers and paraprofessionals, mental health consultants that might be involved with that child or have a potential to be involved in the future, and administrative staff. It's important that administrative staff support the team. What are some other potential team members that you think should be invited to meetings and invited to identify goals? Take a moment and think about that.
So what's it like for families who have a child exhibiting challenging behavior? We're going to take a look in the next video of Brendan's behavior before positive behavior supports were put in place. And then we're going to hear what it was like for Brendan's parents in the video following that.
When we went out anywhere, just going out, we just decided to stay home because it was easier, or taking turns going out, or I wait for you to come home from work. And
we couldn't even go in and out of Publix or Walmart because we couldn't get through the door without having a tantrum. Certainly couldn't go to a restaurant and sit down and have a dinner for a half hour. Just simple everyday life things we couldn't do.
We became isolated, not even eating dinner at home or giving the kids baths or simple things at home. So we ended up just developing routines around Brendan, and that was what we did, you know. I think everybody revolved around him.
I guess what made Brendan tough before PBS was that we had no way to communicate with him. We didn't know what he wanted. He was frustrated, we were frustrated. And it was just a lack of communication, of understanding why he was doing what he was doing, and then how to resolve it is probably what made it the toughest for me. So she just didn't know just how to communicate with him.
I think it was so hard when he would just fall down, and I had to carry him in places, carry him out of places. We were spectacles. People just watched us, they judged us.
I guess when we missed out on activities that our family members were having, I guess you felt defeated, depressed.
I felt abandoned by the family. Yeah. I felt like our family wasn't supporting us, and our entire family was excluded from an event because of our child, and I didn't think that they were helping us to know what to do with our kid. I mean, if anything, they had some pretty tough comments about, well, maybe you should consider an institution. And some of these things are well-meaning. They actually meant well by saying these things about our child, but none of it was really good advice.
I guess you have a lot of self-pity. You're like, you're kind of like, I can't believe this is what my life has turned into. And it's like, and maybe that's what we felt the most is like, how did this happen? How do we go from where we were, 3 years ago or 4 years ago to where we are, today, not being able to leave our house. So that was probably the worst feeling.
Other people looked at us like there was something wrong with our parenting skills.
Certainly before PBS, people, you could just see it. You go to the grocery store and you have somebody tell you, this is the way you should do it, or, your child's doing that because whatever, you're not spanking him, or give him a little spanking and he'll be fine, or whatever, So you have all those, everybody has their own opinion on how you should raise your child without even knowing what your situation is. So,
I think strangers always gave us advice when we were out, and our family always gave us advice, and it was somewhere always along the line of discipline, punishment.
Hi, I'm Jane Hampton, and I work for the Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center. We call ourselves CPAC. All of the staff at CPAC are parents of children with disabilities. Sometimes students with disabilities or students without disabilities can have challenging behaviors. My son, who has autism and intellectual disability, certainly has had his share of challenging behaviors. However, with the use of interventions that would fit into the pyramid model, we had great success in reducing and shaping those behaviors to help him more appropriately meet his needs. The reason this worked for us is because the people who worked with my son, from preschool to high school, worked collaboratively to implement the strategies across all environments, including home, which resulted in positive learning for him. Building these positive relationships with families is a critical element to a high-quality early childhood program. The research has been clear for decades. When schools and families work together, children have improved outcomes. Building a relationship with a family takes time and effort and should be an ongoing goal. When children have challenging behaviors and may need a functional behavioral assessment, the family's input is an essential component to looking at the whole child. Having conversations with families about their child's challenging behavior can be difficult. However, if you already enjoy a positive relationship with a family, it can go more smoothly. This suggests that relationships should be a priority from day one of meeting the family. Families receive the information in various ways. Some families are anxious for your ideas, help, and support. Other families are not quite ready to accept that their child may have an issue that needs to be addressed. Be clear that you are there to help him or her, not to judge. Once it is clear that you are there to be helpful, you can share the behaviors you have seen in the classroom or playground. It may be helpful to ask them if they see the same behavior at home or in other settings. When you share, be sure to share in neutral tones without words that express judgment. A factual description of the behavior is the most effective. Then it is important that you let them know you are confident that with the appropriate behavioral strategies, you can work to help their child. Discuss your ideas to help and ask the family if they have found successful strategies in other settings, including home. Be clear that you can work as a team to be more successful in creating change.
We know that early childhood is a really crucial time for children in general because we think of development as a dynamic process, and we know in young children their central nervous system development continues on during the first few years of life. So they're very, very responsive to environmental changes or environmental factors.
When Javier first came to Nilüfer Rezai's class, his parents wanted to make sure that his individual needs were met.
He came here about three and a half years old, so I was a little nervous because I thought he was little.
We felt that he would learn a lot more and be exposed to other kids, and maybe that was a better learning tool for him.
We want all children who enter our early childhood classroom to have access participation and support. And by that I mean we want them to have access to materials and experiences, be able to participate in any way that they are developmentally ready to participate, and we have to be ready to provide supports as needed to ensure that children have the opportunity to participate. Each child, when they enter our classroom, enters initially with us having some background information on them. So we start by having met their families, getting to know what their families like and their interests are.
He has a lot of interest in games. He learns a game very fast. He gets really comfortable.
Speaking to the families and learning about a child's interests at home is so important because it gives you an opportunity to build on that interest and have a conversation about it at school.
Assessment is a really important aspect of providing appropriate intervention for children when they're very young because we need to identify the characteristics.
We observe daily through different parts of the day. We take anecdotal records, there's photographs, there's child samples, work samples.
We're looking at their patterns of strength, we're looking at their patterns of need, and then we're identifying adaptations that might be effective.
It's really important to include all the members of the team that are working with the child so that we can pick up as much information as possible, and also speaking to families and asking them questions. This is what I'm seeing at school, what are you noticing at home, and kind of gives you, again, another piece of assessment information.
She always takes the time to talk to me when I drop them off in the morning. Just give me an update on how it did the previous day, and just to let me know what they're doing through the day as the day goes on.
Each week when I fill out my individual child plans, I look at each child and I think, okay, what were some of the strengths I saw this week and what would I like to work on?
Pepperoni.
Yes, there's pepperoni.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks.
After observing Javier and talking with his parents, Nilüfer wanted to ensure that he had plenty of opportunities to develop his oral language skills. One strategy she used was encouraging peer interaction.
At the Play-Doh table, the materials are open-ended enough that Javier and his friend Dominic can engage and play together, and I can be there to facilitate asking questions at different levels so they can both be participating in the same conversation, yet at their own pace.
Nilüfer also gave Javier's parents some ideas for things they could do at home to support his language development.
Reading a book at night before he goes to bed, that's something that Miss Neal brought, and it's been very helpful. Javi enjoys that a lot, and we play the characters in the book, and we all take turns reading him a book each night.
We collaborate a lot at home. With the ideas that Miss Nilüfer has given us, we've always sat down together and we talk about it as a family, how we can make little Javi's experience better. And being the littlest one in the house, you do get lost in the big, everyone being so big and talking for you. So as time has gone by, he has, excuse me, I have something to say, I have a question, which is very important, which we didn't teach him, but he's learned to have a voice in school, and he brought that home.
In terms of giving advice to new teachers and professionals, I think the teamwork is absolutely essential. Problem solving is absolutely essential. To understand that nobody has all the answers to all the questions, that it's okay to ask for help. So being willing to work with others, being willing to accept feedback, and most definitely being willing to work with families in very constructive ways.
Javi has shown a lot of improvement in the past few months, I would say, understanding, comprehending more, talking. So I think he's getting to the level that he needs to be.
Another good strategy for working with families around challenging behavior is to share resources with all of your families on a regular basis. If it is part of the ongoing conversation from your program for all families, it will be more well received. Behavior challenges will be part of the normal conversation among the staff and the families if everyone discusses the resources that were shared. Sharing resources with families can be tricky because sometimes parents can be on overload and sometimes they can go unread. Finding out how a family likes to receive their information is a good start to the conversation about the fact that you normally send resources home to families on developmental and behavioral milestones, as well as strategies to address concerns. Some families want things in writing. Many prefer someone to explain things to them. So offering parent training opportunities and having a website with diverse offerings is a really good way to start.
Early childhood positive behavior support is a family-centered process. We need to acknowledge that family is the primary caregiver or caregivers. Families have a considerable and essential role in the development of the child. And a child's challenging behavior affects the quality of life of the entire family. We saw that when we heard Brendan's parents. And now you're going to see Brendan after positive behavior supports, and we'll leave you with Brendan's parents talking about how life was with Brendan after the supports. After that, we'll have a break, and then we'll come back and talk some more about how to do the positive behavior support plans.
That with PBS, we've been able to go back to some of the things and just look really normal out and just in public and restaurants we've gone to eat, and
Baseball game.
we went to a baseball game, we go to dinner. We have goals, little goals of things that we want to do that it's like, okay, let's see how we can accomplish this, and then we just go ahead and figure it out and get our pictures together and
Get our social stories made.
And he said, now we're going to do this. Figured out which things have worked for our family, and I guess that's part of the PBS process, is making it work for you, and then we use it with Brendan. We do first den schedules with Brendan, which always work. Our first den schedule, the first ones we use were, first do something hard for you, and then French fries, because that was always, reward, and then our first then schedules are just like a regular routine that he can cope with, and we've been able to get away from some of the schedules too. Not completely, because he always needs them, but he's just real comfortable. As soon as he learns his routine, we don't have to resort to a picture for every little thing. And
the first couple of weeks of learning how to say things in a positive way was very difficult. I mean, you couldn't get a whole sentence out without stopping and realizing you were saying something negative. So,
we had to correct each other.
Yeah. So I think after the first couple of weeks we finally got the hang of it, and it's interesting now to see other parents with other kids and listen to how they talk to their children. It's like, that used to be me, and to see the reactions of the children when they're speaking to them that way.
And then we know what they're doing. We're like, we know what you're doing. You're telling him don't, stop, no, and you're not giving him any direction, and you're not helping him, and you're not telling him what to do exactly. And so we see why your child is like that. But, my child has got problems, and he's not like that. Biggest cause of celebration is having a simple day. When you know the alternative, a simple day without a tantrum is a happy day. Just happy.